Om. Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om. Peace, peace, peace and beneficence, and the blessings of the holy days be upon us and to all beloved beings everywhere. So it looks as if we have not got a Haima this morning. So I'll just decide where to begin. Okay, I'll just start with 17 and we'll go on through. This pain is caused by false identification of the experiencer with the object of experience. It may be avoided. Now, this is very powerful. This pain, the pain of separation, the pain of not knowing, can be avoided. This pain is caused by false experiencer, by the false identification of the experiencer with the object of experience. It may be avoided. The experiencer is the Atman, the witness presence that within us. The experiencer is the Atman, or real nature. The object of experience is the totality of the apparent world, including the mind and the senses, all of our experience of the body. In reality, the Atman alone exists, one without a second, eternally free. I'm going to repeat that. That is the reality. Instead of identifying with the objects of experience, including the body, mind, and senses, in reality, the Atman alone exists, one without a second, eternally free. So is there any comment from anyone about the aphorism itself or the beginning of the Swami's explanation of its meaning? Because we need to get very clear about what our terms are before we go ahead. Anything at all?
I have a question.
Yes.
Where it says in the discussion about it, the object of experience is the totality of the apparent world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, reading back to number 17, pain is caused by false identification of myself. Well, wait a minute. The experience is, I'm confused. I don't know why.
False identification of the Atman with what it is experiencing, which is the totality of Maya, all of creation, all of your universe.
The Atman, the experiencer, is not the object of experience, which is the totality of the apparent world. Is that what it's saying?
Exactly.
Okay.
The Atman, and it says the Atman alone exists, one without a second. But there is this projection, very deliberate, by the Atman of your universe. And before awakening, and awakening happens in stages, bit by bit, before awakening, the Atman is self-forgetting. It forgets it is one without a second, and as the witness, it is projecting this through the body, mind, and senses. It is projecting your universe. And as you experience that universe, you begin to sense, wait a minute, there's something more here. There's this universe of its projection, and you don't yet know about what it is that's projecting it. It isn't really satisfying. There must be something more. So this is where we come to pursue spiritual life. We become a spiritual practitioner, and then in time become aware of the Atman, and the Atman itself then becomes aware that it is only witnessing this. It is not that. It is not identified with it. It's simply what it is projecting. And so this is where we get this holding two thoughts at one time. There is the projection. Clearly, I am. There are 9 of us here. Each of us has the very definite sense, I am. No harm, no foul. But then there's something more. That I am is a false or lesser truth. This is the way Vivekananda says it. It's a lesser truth than the truth of your being, which is the Atman, one without a second, eternal, and ever free. Anything else from anyone? Thank you, Cindy. That was very provocative.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
I was thinking, at least sometimes I don't know, most of the time, when we sleep and dream, it's a small dream or a limited dream. And the waking state is a bigger and a longer dream of the Atman. And when we sleep and dream, we don't know what wakes us up. I mean, of course, if we set an alarm, then we wake up. Otherwise, at some point, body decides I'm done, and we wake up, whether it's from a nap or night sleep. So likewise, what is it that's going to wake us up from this awake dream? What's going to wake up the Atman?
Well, first of all, it's all 3 worlds, waking, dreaming, and dreamless sleep, are within time, space, and causation. They are Maya. And so we are experiencing each one of those. And what it is that begins to wake us up, it may be something powerful that we're told is probably the result of past life experience. We've heard this story from members of our congregation that something just awakened them. Others of us, we just begin to get this sense that there's something haywire here. There's something wrong. There's something missing. Because no matter how I try, I know I want happiness. I know I want freedom. No matter how I try in this material universe, this universe of time, space, and causation, no matter how I try, I cannot become satisfied, not in any permanent sense. And so this is what Swami Vivekananda refers to as Tantalus as hell. The thing about Tantalus, if you remember, was that he could not drink. He was sentenced to stand in a pond, but the moment he tried to bend over and drink, the water drained away, and he could not eat because the fruits that grew on the trees above him were just out of reach, just a little bit beyond his fingertips. So we keep trying to get a good drink and satisfy our deep thirst. We keep trying to find something to consume, to experience that satisfies our hunger, but it's always that it's just out of reach. Even if we somehow manage to do it, it doesn't really satisfy. So we then begin to think, as Swami Sridharananda says, there must be something else. And this is, in pondering this and searching for this, we come to the idea that, okay, I am, undeniably that's the case. I am, but there's something else. And this is the thou art. And so slowly and slowly, we begin to identify more and more with the thou, which is the Atman, rather than the experienced, which is the body, mind, senses, and so on. Does that get it?
Yes.
Okay. Good. Again, a provocative question. Anything else?
Hari Om Shankarji.
Hari Om Balaji.
Actually, this one, it to me, because there is no experiencer without an object. So it is like you can call somebody a parent if they don't have any children.
Exactly.
In the same way, this pair goes together. That is why in any experience, both the experiencer and the object, they both are mithya. Only the Atma, which is there, is the reality. Is the same thing as, like if you look at a movie, everything on the screen, whatever that is happening, it's all mithya. Only the screen is the reality.
Yes. And when I said that in a group of monks, standing in a group of monks in Providence, Rhode Island, saying, well, it's all mithya anyway, Swami Kripamoyananda reacted instantly and powerfully and said, no, it is mithya after realization. Before that, it is your reality. It is your satya. So we can say the word mithya, but we really do not know what it means until there is realization. This is what Kripamoyananda was making very emphatically clear. And all of the other swamis, I was standing in a group of about 6, all of the other swamis nodded. There was assent all around.
Yeah.
Is mithya after realization.
Yes.
Before that, this is your satya.
But if we are practicing in this spirituality to go to a higher understanding, we have to realize this is all experiential reality only. Whatever we are seeing, whatever the object and the subject, they are all, it's all experiential reality only.
Okay. And so when in the presence of Sri Ramakrishna, someone would say this, he would give them a fierce pinch right on their bottom, right on their buttock. I mean, a fierce pinch. And they would say, ouch! And he'd say, oh, I thought you told me that this was not a reality. No, Vivekananda says, and Adi Shankaracharya says, this is not unreal. It is simply a lesser reality. It is a superimposition of a lesser reality on the deeper or true reality. So we can hold these two thoughts at once, but we must, according to Kripa Moyananda, Swami Prabhavananda, Swami Vivekananda, Sri Ramakrishna, we must say this thought of our experience of the body, minds, and senses. We understand it is a false identification, but as long as the I consciousness persists, we should not pretend that it does not exist. This is why Sri Ramakrishna would give those people that fierce pinch. And he really did this on perhaps a half a dozen occasions that are mentioned in the gospel. So, because people would come to him with this explanation of the Advaita position, and he would correct them, saying, no, this too is reality. And he says this is then becomes the Vijnani's position. Beyond mitya, beyond the understanding of mitya, with realization of the jnani, there is the knowledge that this is all real. Water, still water and waves, it is always and ever, eternally, the water of being. So we have to be very careful about, according to all of these that I've just quoted, we need to be very careful about denying the existence of our I consciousness as long as it actually persists. Is that clear, Balakrishna? Did I make?
Yes, no, it is very clear. I agree. I understand now. But the mithya means it's not completely, unreal. It has its own reality, and it does, it is either real or unreal.
Well, this is what Kripa Moyananda was being so fierce about when he corrected me. We understand the word mithya after realization. We understand its true meaning only then. Before that, it's just conceptual for us. So it's probably not a very auspicious word for us to use much, because it's a word that we don't really understand. That's what the Swami was telling me. That don't use words you don't understand. And I really felt corrected. I mean, I feel it in my body when I tell this story right now. I mean, he went, when he gestured, boom, like that with his hand, I felt something actually bump my body, so to speak. Anything else from anyone? This is very productive discussion. This is exactly it.
Hi, Brother Shankara.
Yes.
I truly get it that, as a, like, intellectually knowing that it is mithya versus having it in an experience, these are totally two different things. And just intellectually knowing, it doesn't make any difference. And I think that's what he meant, that until you realize, you just like know that it's mithya, but it's not in your experience. However, I just want to add one thing. Where it helps me is that, when I get entangled too much, and then when, like, even the intellectual knowing that, or at that moment realizing, oh, it's all mithya, that brings the peace, and, okay, it's okay. It's not, there's a much bigger reality, and this is just a small piece of it. That brings a little calmness, I would say. So that's where it helps.
This is, yes, exactly, dear. This is the point of holding those two thoughts at once. I cannot deny the reality of my I consciousness experience, but I can know that there is nothing to fear, nothing really to worry about, because there is something beyond. I will come to know it in time. And as you say, that brings calmness, an increasing calmness, because as we learn to practice spirituality and we learn to sink into the silence, we begin to have that direct experience of what the silence tells us. And the silence is telling us just exactly what you said. Nothing to fear, nothing to concern yourself about. Be calm and thoughtful.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we, that's our, and that's a real sign of spiritual progress, according to Swami Swahananda. When you are able to hold both thoughts at once and take refuge in the truth, even though you do not yet fully know it.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up that way. And that's what Balakrishna was trying to say also, I think. That, you take refuge in the truth, even though, I was just saying we should be careful about stating it flatly.
Yeah.
That's what I did, and the Swami reacted strongly, instantly, and fiercely. No, it is mithya after realization. Before realization, this is your satya. And he gestured, but the gesture was to what we were surrounded with. This is your satya. This is your truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lesser truth.
Actually, that is what I'm focusing on. Even in the Taittiriya Upanishad, it says what Somesh just said. There are two benefits of following this one. One is the happiness in this, relative world, and the moksha in the, paramarthika level.
Right. So, yes, but that's all to come for us. We take refuge in the fact that we have faith that it exists.
Yeah.
Anything else from anyone? Okay. By the false identification through Maya, which is the mystery of our present predicament, by the false identification through Maya, the delusory power, which is the mystery of our present predicament, the Atman is mistaken for the individual ego, subject to the thought waves which arise and trouble the mind. Can any of us deny that is a fact? Thought waves arise and trouble the mind. That's just exactly what Somesh was gesturing to. When that happens, then I take some refuge in this other thought. That is why we imagine that we are unhappy or happy, angry or lustful. That is why we imagine we are unhappy or happy, angry or lustful. We imagine those things. They don't really exist. They are part of our projection, our imagination of the universe we are creating for ourselves. The Gita reminds us that this is not really the case. The illumined soul thinks always, I am doing nothing. The illumined soul thinks always, I, the small I, body-mind complex and its projection, I am doing nothing. Who's doing? As Krishna says in the Gita, I alone am the doer. And Sri Ramakrishna emphasizes it over and over. God alone is the doer. That you are doing nothing. It is through the gunas, through the instrument of the divine power of Maya, that your body acts. Your mind thinks. The illumined soul thinks always, I am doing nothing. No matter what he sees, hears, touches, smells, eats. This he knows always. I am not seeing. I am not hearing. It is the senses that see and hear and touch the things of the senses. The senses are themselves, as is very carefully described in Sankhya, are a creation of the gunas, so that they can experience these things. These are the 21 cosmic principles. You know, the first three are Mahat, Buddhi, and Atman. That is the unity, the trinity of Sankhya. Mahat, the great cause, Buddhi, the ability to recognize that something is happening and tell one thing from another, and then the realization, oh, I, the cosmic I. There is no other I than the cosmic I. This is the Atman. Another name for the Atman is the Ahamkara. Then what happens is, so that this can all be formed into something that can be experienced, according to Sankhya, the 21 cosmic principles come into being. One of the first is the mind. The three gunas form the mind, the five subtle senses, the five subtle elements, then the gross elements and the gross senses. Notice that the mind is not part of that. The mind doesn't even exist within the body. If you wish to hear scientific proof of this, scientific proof that the mind does not exist within the body, which is exactly what Sankhya says. But Pim Van Lommel, I'm pretty sure, didn't know anything about that when he did the scientific research that led to his book, Consciousness Beyond Life. And he proves scientifically that the mind, our awareness, does not exist within the body. The body is a kind of transceiver. The brain is a kind of transceiver, and the rest of the body is that which is acting based on what is received through the transceiver. And we act in the world so there's the receiver part, and then there's the transmitter part. The book is Consciousness Beyond Life. The author, Pim, P-I-M, next word, V-A-N, Van The last word, Lommel. For any of you who wish to pursue this, I highly recommend reading that book.
Brother Shakur,
Yes, sir.
if the mind does not exist within the body, where does it exist?
It exists in an etheric egg that surrounds us. And this, of course, has been part of esoteric and occult teachings for millennia. You find it in the teachings of, first of all, you find it in Indian scripture. It's obscure, but it's there. You find it also in the Egyptian mystery temples, the teaching of the Gnostics, and you find it in the teachings of the Toltec and the Hopi and other of the Native American people. So the Toltec, they're part of what is now called Mexico. The Hopi, which are southwestern United States, it used to be part of Mexico. And then you find it also among the Lakota and Dakota peoples of the upper Midwest. It exists in an etheric egg outside the body. And this is why Don Juan Matus told Carlos Castaneda, I see your etheric egg, I see your egg, and I see the dark spots on it. And this is where your ignorance exists. And so I'm working on clearing up and brightening those dark spots. The Gnostics say exactly the same thing. That the seer, the illumined soul, can see the dark spots on another person's etheric egg. Sri Ramakrishna could also. It isn't said much about, but it's there. It's in the gospel and it's in the great master. That Sri Ramakrishna also saw these cosmic eggs and found them so amusing because they looked like they were bouncing along, people walking. The egg looked as if it were bouncing along. It made him laugh.
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
So this is my imagination again coming out. If we think of the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, as inertia, gravity, and electricity, which again are vibrations of different frequencies, and they strike the sanskaras, which are the collection of the karmic body, thoughts, and emotions over lifetimes.
The mental impressions.
Mental impressions.
That are there as a form of vibration themselves.
Vibrations.
Yes.
Then the something in the stored memory then causes that result to project as what we then interpret as fear or anger. Is that?
Yes, exactly. Precisely. It is the effect of the gunas on our samskaras and the vasanas, which are a combination of samskaras to create a habit pattern. It's just exactly that. And this is why when we begin to practice spiritual disciplines and begin to create a different vibration within us, due to what we're focusing our attention on, it also has this sattvic effect on the samskaras and reveals to us a higher and higher form of truth. As Vivekananda says, we do not move from error to truth. We move from lesser truth. He says, we move, if you will, from lesser truth to higher truth. And Patanjali talks about this in this book that we're studying as replacing the lower samskaras with higher samskaras. And his pattern for doing that is called the niyamas. These different forms of vibration. One of the things that Sri Ramakrishna, and this goes back to Chaitanya, and it goes back, for that matter, to Christ, is to chant the name of the Lord. And so in Christian tradition, there is this and variations on it. Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me. There are two, what in Sanskrit are called bijas, in the seed words in that mantra. Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me. The first is the term Christ itself, Christos. It is a seed word, a very powerful vibration. It is the word. That in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. And then the second is the word mercy, which we think we understand the word mercy because of the way it's commonly used in language. It is not that at all. It is way, way, way. It is mercy is the word that contains all of the divine attributes of love and compassion and relationship and so on. So that's a Christian mantra with bijas in it. The Ramakrishna order teaches their own. When you received Diksha, you received a mantra. That mantra contains not only the name of Sri Ramakrishna, more than likely, but it also contains seed words that have immense power to replace lower samskaras with higher samskaras and make dormant those samskaras that produce this lustful attitude. As Sri Chaitanya says, chant the name of the Lord and his glory unceasingly, that the mirror of the heart may be wiped clean and quenched that mighty forest fire, worldly lust, raging furiously within. So that the third and fourth spiritual centers in the body, he's saying, are transformed. The heart center and the solar plexus center, the third and fourth, are transformed. The mirror of the heart is wiped clean and quenched that mighty forest fire, worldly lust, raging furiously within. This is his unqualified promise. Sri Ramakrishna affirms that promise and says that chanting the name of the Lord is the most auspicious spiritual practice at this time, at the end of the Kali Yuga. He says that specifically. And offering all of the fruits of your actions to the divine. So that's his bhakti yoga and his karma yoga.
So is it a stretch of imagination that the realized beings either see or feel the vibrations and then become part of the vibrations, or stop?
They not only see and feel them and become part of them, they learn to control them. The nun that is now Vrajaprana, I've forgotten her birth name, but I've known her as Sister Vrajaprana since she was in her early 20s, and she's now she's in her 70s, I think. In any event, when she first met Swami Prabhavananda, it was at the Santa Barbara Temple. She'd come to hear a lecture. He wasn't the lecturer, Prabhavananda wasn't, it was Pavitrananda. She looked at Pavitrananda, who was just all, because of the who and how he was only skin and bones. And she said, oh, if this is what this leads to, I don't want any part of it. Becoming someone like, even though he spoke wisdom, she didn't like the vehicle. But when she went to the door in the Santa Barbara temple, when you go there, the speaker stands at the door and shakes your hand and says something to you, shakes your hands or pronounce or whatever it is. In any event, when she did that with Pavitrananda, out from behind him stepped Swami Prabhavananda. Prabhavananda extended his hand. Her first impression was, because Swami Prabhavananda was, in Bengali terms, rather plumpy. He was quite well filled out. And she said, "Oh, this is more like it." But then she took his offered hand. Something, she said, she felt something come up her arm and into her heart. She felt it. 2.5 years later, she was a nun. So what you're saying, they not only feel the vibrations, understand the vibrations in a non-intellectual sense, but learn to control them and can project them. So thank you for that very provocative question.
Thank you.
Anything else from anyone? All right. The illumined soul thinks always, I am doing nothing, no matter what he sees, hears, touches, smells, eats. This he knows always. I am not seeing. I am not hearing. It is the senses that see and hear and touch the things of the senses. So long as the experiencer is falsely identified with the object of experience, so long as the experiencer, the Atman, the only experiencer, the only I that exists, so long as the experiencer is falsely identified with the object of experience, we cannot know the Atman, our true nature. Now, if you want to know who this Atman is, according to the Upanishads, it is a little blue being that lives in the lotus of your spiritual heart center. And though that little blue being appears to be separate because it is in your spiritual heart center and can be seen there in the so-called lotus of the heart, the spiritual heart center, it seems to be separate, but it is not. It is totally connected to all of eternity, infinity, and changelessness. But because it is now taken embodiment, because it now appears to be separate, and is surrounded by this, first of all, this body mass complex, body mass mind complex, and then beyond that, the etheric egg that is our projection of that. Then it is falsely identified. It's falsely identified. So long as the experiencer, that little blue being the size of the thumb, is falsely identified with the object of experience, that embodiment, we cannot know the Atman, which is the totality of which it is inseparably and eternally and infinitely apart. We cannot know the Atman, our real nature, because that is what our real nature is: infinite, eternal, changeless. And this, when we know this, then we know that the objects of experience are mithya. This is what the Swami was pointing out to me. Until you know the truth, this, the object of experience and the false identification of the experiencer with that seemingly separate I consciousness, of which there are now 9 present on this screen. All of us have that experience of this lesser reality as our satya. This is the truth of our being now. Though we know of the other in an intellectual and perhaps even beyond that through our spiritual practice, a more subtle sense, still we're not firmly established in that Atman. That little blue being is still, as in the words of the Gita and in the words of Patanjali at the end of the Yoga Sutras, it is self-forgetting. It has forgotten its true nature. So what is the result of this? The Swami goes on to say, we remain in bondage, believing ourselves to be the slaves of experience, believing ourselves to be the slaves of experience. Vivekananda says, no, matter is not the master and you the servant. No, you are the master of matter. And is he ever fierce about that? If you want to know what I mean, read his book, Inspired, the book that was created of the talks he gave in Thousand Island Park in 1895. Inspired Talks. It's published by the New York East Side Center, the Ramakrishna Vivekananda Society of New York. Inspired Talks. We carry it in the bookstore. Vivekananda is absolutely fierce about this. Matter is not your master. You are not a slave to the material world and your experience of it. You have only to find the divine power within yourself and everything changes. Here's a quote. There is a story, writes Swami Vivekananda, that the king of the gods, Indra, once became a pig. There is a story, writes Swami Vivekananda, that the king of the gods, Indra, once became a pig. A pig wallowing in the mire. He had I'm sorry, what is that?
A sheep pig.
He had a she pig and a lot of baby pigs and was very happy. So here's the king of the gods as a pig wallowing in the mire. He had a she pig and a lot of baby pigs and was very happy. Then some gods saw his plight and came to him and told him, you are the king of the gods. You have all the gods under your command. Why are you here? But Indra said, never mind, I'm all right here. I do not care for heaven. while I have this sow and these little pigs? Sound familiar to us? I don't care for heaven while I have this sow and these little pigs. The poor gods were at their wits' end. After a time, they decided to slay all the pigs, one after another. When all were dead, Indra began to weep and mourn. Then the gods ripped his pig body open, and he came out of it and began to laugh. And began to laugh when he realized what a hideous dream he had had. He, the king of the gods, to have become a pig and to think that pig life was the only life. Not only so, but to have wanted the whole universe to come into the pig life. This is the thing about ignorance. Misery loves company. Misery loves company. So if you spend time with worldly people, they will share their worldly view with you and try to persuade you that you are kind of crazy for believing all these things. And if you just join them, why, we'll all have a good time. We all know this.
I wish he had picked something else other than a pig for this story, though, because if in real life that had happened, he wouldn't have lasted long. Especially not in America, where people have to have their pig. Not me, but you know.
Well,
They would have cut him open, and he would have come right out then.
Yeah, but this happened in India, where as a general rule they don't eat pigs.
And made probably a wild pig.
Yeah, probably a wild pig.
Yeah. Brother Shankara, I really like this one line that we remain in bondage, believing ourselves to be the slaves of experience. And I just got present that, how many times in a day I think that, what can I do if somebody doesn't listen, or if things are that way? Like my thought of what can I do, it's just being a slave of my experience,
Yes, exactly. And Krishna answers the question very thoroughly in chapters 4, 5, and 6 of the Gita. What he says is you can begin to practice the idea that everything that you encounter is the divine presence, the divine being, and interact with it in that way. Slowly and slowly, what happens is you lose this sense of helplessness in the face of what happens to you and see it as the divine being acting as the divine being would act. But furthermore, because you behave in this way, as the Beatles so eloquently said, the love you take is equal to the love you make. What a wonderful couplet. The love you take is equal to the love you make. If you begin to love the entire world, the entire universe, as the divine being acting this is the Vijnani position that Sri Ramakrishna talks about. You do this in the beginning because Sri Krishna, and for that matter, Jesus Christ in the Sermon on the Mount, says to behave this way. then it transforms the world. As Vivekananda put it in more intellectual terms, the microcosm reflects the macrocosm and vice versa, which the Beatles so nicely summarized in "The love you take is equal to the love you make." So if you begin to practice that the divine presence and act lovingly toward the divine presence, how else would you act toward the divine presence? And this means all the people you work with, all your family members, every other living creature you deal with, whether you have pets or encounter some other living being out there in the world. If you treat them as the divine presence, then they do not treat you as they have in the past. Slowly and slowly it happens. Krishna promises it. Jesus promises it. Sri Ramakrishna promises it. Holy Mother promises it. All these that we have reason to listen to and have faith in, they tell us this. This is true karma yoga. Thank you, Somesh. I'm so glad you brought that up that way. Anything else from anyone? All right, we have just a few minutes left, so I'm going to use that time for some announcements. We'll pick it up here next week after this story of Shiva. Not Shiva, but Indra taking the form of the pig. And another version of this story, it's Shiva that comes and says, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And cuts him open with his trident. So the next few weeks, we have 3 gatherings coming up. The first is tomorrow, when we'll very joyously celebrate Holy Mother's birthday. If any of you are coming to that event, please don't come if you're not fully vaccinated, and only come if you're willing to wear a mask all the time that you're in the chapel. And if you come, you might bring something to offer to the mother to eat, if you come. Because we're going to serve her food as part of this informal. It's not a tantric worship. It's a worship modeled on her own worship of the master, which was emphatically not tantric. Very informal and very straightforward. That's what we're going to do tomorrow. But because of a very strong spike and ongoing spike in 3 virus infections, COVID, RSV, and flu, we will not come in the monastery afterwards to share the prasad. So we'll have little bowls for you to take home your prasad. So that's the first of these 3 events. The second will be our Christmas Eve worship on the 24th, also at 11 a.m. on the 24th in the chapel, and exactly the same drill. We'll gather together in the chapel. It will be also, both of these will be available on Zoom. And then we'll make this lovely little Ramakrishna order informal, non-tantric worship of Jesus Christ and Mother Mary. And again, if you come, it would be a kindness and auspicious for you to bring a little something to offer to Lord Jesus and Mother Mary. And then the third, and this will be also in the chapel, it'll be at 2:30 in the afternoon on January 1st, which is Kalpatarude. And there's no prasad associated with that. There's no worship service. It's simply an observance of what happened on that very auspicious day in the life of Sri Ramakrishna and 30 some odd of his direct disciples. But the thing that's to be clear is that ordinarily after some worship service or puja, we would come into the monastery and share the prasad. But there's just too much risk of gathering together that closely with our masks off, as we would have to have them off as we eat. So any comments or questions from anyone about any of that? All right.
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
I don't have a question, but I recently came across this very moving sort of story, if I can quickly narrate this,
Please
about Sri
do.
Ramakrishna and Holy Mother.
Please do.
So apparently somebody had asked Sri Ramakrishna why he did not lead the life of a householder with his wife.
Mhm.
And he narrated this story that Kartikeya, the son of Shiva, one day happened to scratch a cat with his nail. When he went home, he saw the mark of a scratch on the cheek of his divine mother Parvati. So seeing this, he asked her, Mother, how did you get this ugly scratch on your cheek? The Mother of the Universe replied, This is the work of your own hand. It is a scratch of your nail. Kartikeya asked in wonder, How is it, Mother? I do not remember to have scratched you at any time. The mother replied, Darling, have you forgotten the fact of your having scratched a cat this morning? Kartikeya said, Yes, I did scratch a cat, but how did your cheek get the scar? The mother replied, Dear child, nothing exists in this world but myself. The whole creation is myself. Whomsoever you may hurt, you only hurt me. Kartikeya was greatly surprised to hear this, and then he determined never to marry. For whom could he marry? Every woman was a mother to him. Realizing thus the motherhood of woman, he gave up marriage. Sri Ramakrishna said, I am like Kartikeya. I consider every woman as my divine mother. So two things this story reminded me. One, of course, hearing it from Sri Ramakrishna, and then a Holy Mother seeing the cat. You have always narrated the story about when somebody like beat the cat. She said, well, I'm in that cat. So do we need any more proof that Sharda Devi was the divine mother?
Yes. Well, just to clarify that little story about Mother and the cat, when she lived in Jairambati, a member of the household was a cat. There was a cat that was a member of the household. Very, the very usual kind of thing in village life at that time in India. There was a cat. Now, all cats are sometimes mischievous. It's just a fact. There were brahmacharis there that were there to help care for the mother. When this cat was mischievous one day, the brahmachari picked up the cat by the scruff of the neck and was going to give it a whack. And mother said very sharply, which means fiercely, don't beat that cat. I am in that cat. Which is why the cat that we have here in the monastery is named Devi, D-E-V-I. Don't beat that cat. I am in that cat. And the second aspect of and believe me, Sri Ramakrishna had heard this sung, narrated many times, in the Chandi, the Devi Mahatmyam. All mythologies and scriptures are your aspects, O Devi, speaking to the Mother of the universe. All mythologies and scriptures are your aspects, O Devi. So are all women in the world, endowed with their various attributes. All women are the Divine Mother. Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma. Now there's yet another codicil to this story. When Mirabai visited Vrindavan, she went to the chief temple and wanted to go inside. At that time, in that place, women were not allowed in that temple. So the gatekeeper stopped her and said, I'm sorry, you can't go in, women not allowed. And so she said, may I speak to whoever controls this place? And so the head priest came out. And she said to him, bowing, she said, is there any other man in the universe, any other male being in the universe other than Krishna? Are not all souls female before God? And so the head priest then bowed to her, took her by the hand, and led her into the temple. And that rule was changed forthwith. Are not all souls female before God? It is very auspicious for us to identify with that feminine, that motherly nature within ourselves. It's much easier to practice karma yoga from that position than it is from the position of a man. It is also easier to practice bhakti yoga because it is heart-centered. And as we all know from our own birth mothers and from our study of the Divine Mother, that the Divine Feminine is essentially, capital E, essentially heart-centered. So thank you, Swayam, very much for bringing that up. Anything else from anyone? All right, dears. This is the last Saturday class for this year, of course, because next Saturday is Christmas Eve, and we'll have the Christmas Eve worship at the same at 11 a.m. It'll run, through what ordinarily would be our start of our class hour. So this is the last of the Saturday classes, so we'll take this up again after the first of the year. Two other announcements about classes. We're just about to come to the end of the Tuesday reading and discussion of Swami Chaitanananda's book, Sri Sharada Devi, Her Divine Play. When we finish that book, which will be shortly after the first of the year, it's almost finished now. We just read the story of Holy Mother's passing away, which happened in July of 1920. We'll hear more about that tomorrow if you attend the puja either in person or on Zoom. So on Tuesdays, starting after the first of the year, we will begin to study, read, and discuss the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. That will be our Tuesday class. And then on Wednesday, we'll come to the end of the book we're studying on Wednesdays, which is Swami Ranganathananda's Divine Grace. And when we finish our reading and discussion of that gem-like little book, then we will, on Wednesdays, begin to study Bhagavad Gita. So next year, early next year, we'll study Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna on Tuesday and Bhagavad Gita on Wednesday. And of course, we're a long way from finishing How to Know God on Saturdays. So we won't even think anything about anything other than that. We'll just continue on Saturdays. Anything else from anyone before we close? Well, as always, dears, this is so delightful. We never make a whole lot of progress in the text because we do this manana together. And I'm so glad that you are adept at this and like to do it, because this is how we assimilate these things. Sri Ramakrishna says it's all well and good to read these things and quote these things and even know them by heart. But unless you assimilate them, they cannot make any difference in your life. And so we're assimilating this wonderful book by Swami Prabhavananda, his interpretation of and commentary on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. Any other thought from anyone? All right. Chant the name of the Lord and his glory unceasingly, that the mirror of the heart may be wiped clean and quenched that mighty forest fire, worldly lust, raging furiously within. O beloved, stream down in moonlight on the lotus heart, opening its cup to knowledge of thyself. O self, drown deep in the waves of his bliss, chanting his name continually, tasting his nectar at every step, bathing in his name, that bath for weary souls. Various are thy names, O Lord. In each and every name thy power resides. No times are set, no rites are needful for chanting of thy name. So vast is thy mercy. How huge then is my wretchedness, who find in this empty life and heart no devotion to thy name. Om Hari Om Tat Sat. That, of course, those are the opening lines from Sri Chaitanya's prayer. Om Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. May we be always in the loving and know that we are always in the embrace of the divine being as our mother and father. May the blessings of the holy days, may the blessings of these holy days at the end of this year be upon you and your family. Or as my Celtic forebears would have said it, may the blessings of the holy days be upon you and your family. They really did talk that way. May the blessings of the holy days be upon you and upon your family. Glad tidings have we. All right, dears. Until tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock in the chapel or on Zoom, we'll do our really, I can't tell you how I look forward to this worship of the Divine Mother in the form of Sri Sharda Devi tomorrow morning. So I hope you can join us one way or the other.
Brother
Yes,
Shankara,
yes, dear.
quick question. Naveen and I, it's our turn to do flowers this weekend, so we'll be coming later this afternoon. Any Special flowers do you need for tomorrow's puja?
Oh, yes, if you can bring extra flowers and decorate the shrine with them. Will you be coming tomorrow in person also?
Hoping to.
Okay, well, why don't you then? Oh, thank you for asking. Answer to prayer. Uh, get extra flowers uh, and use those. And in the morning before the puja, come shortly before 11, sometime 10:30 or thereabouts, and decorate the shrine with those flowers in the way that you so well know how to do.
Okay, so today and then redecorate tomorrow?
Well, you'll just do your regular shrine flowers today,
Okay,
the
yeah,
bouquets.
okay,
Tomorrow you'll put some on the shrine itself.
okay,
You know, the cut flowers.
okay, okay.
So you don't need to change the bouquets.
Mm-hmm.
Those will be fine. Those are always lovely. But buy some extra flowers so
Okay,
that you can uh, do them as cut flowers and decorate the shrine. I
okay,
was wondering how we were going to get that done, and it would be lovely if you'll do that.
okay. And for that cut flowers, anything specific? Any?
Well, the mother loves yellow flowers.
Okay,
You know, the master, of course, whenever we worship the mother, we also worship the master,
okay,
and his flower color is white. So white flowers and yellow flowers. And of course, to uh, emblemize the heart-centeredness of all this, some red flowers of some kind. And they don't need to be roses.
okay,
Roses are expensive. You can get red carnations or any other red flower. It doesn't need to be, you don't need to go to a lot of expense here. And the center will be very happy to reimburse you for these flowers.
thank you, Brother Shankar.
Well, thank you for asking, dear. What a delightful, and I mean that's an answer to prayer. I was wondering how we were going to get the flowers done because I hadn't made any provision for it. All week has gone by and I hadn't asked anybody to do it. So Mother herself prompted you to do this. So I don't want to be without my flowers. So here, Swayam, you and Naveen do this. So Jai Ma, Jai Ma. And anybody who comes in person tomorrow, if you bring a little something, it doesn't have to be a lot. You know, there are not going to be many of us come to the chapel in the morning, I'm sure. So you don't need to bring a lot of food, just some to offer to the mother, and then people can take it home as prasad. Okay? All right, dears. Thank you so very much. And until tomorrow or until Christmas Eve or whenever we see you next. Oh, the Tuesday and Wednesday classes we'll hold next week. We're not going to skip those, but there won't be any Saturday class, of course. Jai Ma, Jai Ma.